What's going on? Welcome to a special broadcast of Urban Health Outreach Media. I am your host, Steve Belcher. Share this broadcast. It looked like I only got one person on here, but I don't know. I got this multi-streaming, but share this broadcast. This is a show you definitely want to tune into, especially if you're in a relationship, you're married, you have a chronic illness, or you have kidney disease. This is the topic tonight that we're going to discuss. There's going to be many topics about this. And this is not the first show we have done. Tamika and myself have done relationship shows. This one, however, we're going to talk about the impact, which is devastating, the impact that kidney disease and other chronic illnesses have on the family. And here tonight to talk about their experience, we have Curtisha Ray-Anderson and her husband, James, from Kansas City, Kansas. We have Demetris Brisby and her husband, Tyrone, from Jacksonville, Florida. And we have, it's a change in social workers. We had Sade, Cutler, but unexpected plans came up. So we were fortunate enough to have licensed clinical social worker and 20-year kidney warrior, transplant warrior, Don Kurkowski. So I'm going to bring them on. I'm going to bring on Don first and then bring on my other guest. So let me give Don the VIP welcome. Hey, what's going on, Don? How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. Thank you for coming in on short notice. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Anything to help out the kidney warriors.
Absolutely. So what's going on in New Jersey?
COVID cases rising, and yeah, it's a little rough here. A lot more people seeking mental health treatment, including families. And I do deal with the impact of both mental and physical illness on couples and families. So, yeah.
Okay, and before I bring on our guest, let me just read this about the impact that kidney disease have on the family. And you can actually include chronic illness. It says the impact kidney disease and dialysis treatment can have on a family ranges from your daily routine to your interpersonal relationship. Mm-hmm. Some changes may bring you and your family closer and help everyone see what is really important. Others may cause stress and friction. Being prepared can help make it easier to deal with changes. Now, with that being said, again, this can bring people closer or together, but there's been many posts I've seen in Facebook groups where there's been numerous people getting divorced when one of the spouses come up with a chronic illness such as kidney disease because the other person can't deal with that.
Yep, absolutely. I've seen it as well.
Right. Is that common?
It is fairly common. Sadly, couples have so much difficulty when one of them has chronic illness and the other one is kind of feeling left in the dark because they're a caregiver, or even if they're not the caregiver, they're just feeling like they're not part of the marriage anymore or the relationship. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to bring on two couples, married couples, that to me exemplify what a married couple is. I mean, we have Demetris and Tyrone, who both, where one was the caregiver, now both of them are pretty much caregivers to each other in a similar way, but one is more to the other. And then we have Curtisha and her husband James, that's at the other end of the spectrum, where James is taking care of his wife. Two different situations, but two different testaments that love can conquer all. And that's why I chose these two couples. I had I didn't even upload the picture, but and I won't find it, but I had the opportunity of meeting Demetris and Tyrone in person in Maryland when they rode up and down the East Coast in that nice RV. And I was supposed to meet Curtisha and her husband till COVID came along and knocked that out. So without further ado, let me bring them on because I definitely admire both of these couples. I think they exemplify what it means to be in a marriage and overcome these odds, especially when it comes down to like a medical condition where some people just run away from the situation and leave that person on their own. So let me give them the VIP guest. Hey, D and Tyrone and Curtisha and James, how y'all doing?
Fine, yourself?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Thank both of you couples for coming on tonight, taking the time out of your Saturday evening to talk about this subject, relationship, marriages, and chronic illnesses. So let me start with Tyrone and D. Y'all out of Jacksonville, Florida, right?
Yes.
And D, I mean, I had a picture and I just didn't download it of when we were in Maryland.
Oh, yeah.
And let me see if I could pull it up real quick. But can you just share briefly Tyrone's journey with his heart transplant and how you became caregiver for him?
Okay. He got sick when he was 51, and which was maybe about 6 or 7 years ago. And once he got sick, he didn't want to stop working because he's a workaholic.
Right.
So when he got sick, he didn't know he was that sick. So he was laying in the bed one day, and I asked him to go to the doctor to see what's going on. And he said, I'll go tomorrow. He kept putting it off. So I started, walking around the house nervous, trying to figure out how can I get him out the house to get him to the hospital. And so I called my neighbor, but he thought I went to go get him some soup to eat. So he heard the door open, but that was my neighbor coming in the house. So we go back there and convinced him to go to the hospital. And so we both talked him into going to the hospital, but he said, I'll be back. Okay, I'll be back today. And so my neighbor took him to the emergency room while I stayed back with his wife. So we rode together afterwards, but he called and said, D, they gonna keep me. And I said, okay. So when I got to the hospital, they kept him and they put him in ICU, and he was in there for how long? He was in there
About
for
2 weeks.
About 2 weeks. And when they did, what did they do when they checked your heart? What's they called?
The ejection fraction on your heart.
Yes. And when they did the ejection fraction on his heart, he called me on the phone to see where I was. I didn't even recognize his voice. His voice was, I'm like, who is this? I'm like, he sounded like he was like dying. And I'm like, oh my God, he sounds terrible. But yeah, that's what happened.
And
and
ended up he having heart failure and received a heart transplant from a 14-year-old teenager.
Yeah.
Share that story. Because I heard your story many times, but you were on Transplant Talk with Nashonda, and you shared a brief touch on the story on the importance of organ donation. So can you just share that little bit, how Kyle went to his parents and how it all led up to Tyrone getting that transplant?
Yes, his Kyle, 14 years old. I don't know how he was thinking about this. He must have heard it from school, because he was very intelligent to, being involved in being a donor. So he came home one day from school and he sat around the table, when they was eating dinner. And he said, Mom and Dad, have you ever thought about becoming a donor?
Wow.
They said, no, don't nobody want our organs. I smoke. That was funny to me. So then he said, well, if anything ever happened to me, I want to be a donor. And they said, nothing's going to happen to you. So I don't know why you're saying that. And 3 weeks later, was it 3 weeks or 3 months?
3 months.
3 months later, he was in a car accident.
Wow.
And he was brain dead. And so when the parents got to the hospital, he was already gone. He was brain dead. And they said, well, what you would like to do? The doctor asked them. And they said, he already made that decision. So
wow.
He's going to, we're going to donate his organs, and he saved 5 lives. Just
wow. Amazing
so
young man.
Tyrone thought he was 14.
Right.
When he came home, I'm like, no, you need to stop acting like that. You're not 14.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I found a picture when we was in Maryland.
Oh,
right
yeah.
there.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
We traveled, and the day, that was my birthday, that day that you came. So that was my birthday. I was so happy to be, in Maryland and Washington. And then I went to New York. I was just so happy to be traveling in the RV. We had so much fun.
Yeah, I got a little teary-eyed because I remember that day, that I met you. And again, this journey of meeting different people and, maybe, life, is life and people pass on. But it just, I'm just so fortunate to been able to come down where y'all were at, to be able to meet you traveling up and down the East Coast. I'm just very humbled. So just wanted to show that picture to people.
Glad to meet you. We were so excited.
So before we move on to James and Curtisha, share what happened to you, because now you were Tyrone's caregiver for many years, and now the tables have turned dramatically. And like I said, I saw the interview and I saw everything Tyrone had to say about he had to learn new things, take on a different role, and it was pretty much nonstop 24/7. Share what happened, because it just came out of nowhere, and the condition that you have is very, very rare.
Yes, it is. I have neuromyelitis optica, and I would say one day I went to church, and this lady that was sitting next to Tyrone was sick, and she was coughing in her hand. And so Tyrone said, "Look at her coughing in her hand, won't even wash her hands with sanitizer or nothing." And so Tyrone said, "I'm going to the car because I could easily get sick. My immune system is low." So he left and went outside and sat in the car for about 30 minutes. And I stayed in the church. And the pastor told us to stand up, and he said, "Tell your neighbor," but he never told them to touch us. So when he said, "Tell your neighbor," whatever, he told us to tell him. And she took her nasty hand and put it on my shoulder, and my shoulder was bare. And that night I got so sick, and I couldn't understand why my head was hurting, why I was feeling so drained, and just feeling awful. And the next day I went to the doctor, and he said, "You have type A flu." Just that fast, just by her.
Oh, wow.
And so I got over it. The doctor gave me some medicine, and 7 days I got over it. So the next month, Tyrone said, "Well, why don't you take a flu shot?" But this is what I found out. Once you get the flu, you don't supposed to take the flu shot. You have to wait till next year. But I went on and took the flu shot because I didn't know. And within that time period, I end up sick and in the hospital. And so by the time I got to the hospital, I couldn't even walk. I couldn't do nothing for myself. I was pretty much a paraplegic all the way down from my shoulders down. And Tyrone had to push me in the hospital by the time I got there. But it took 3 days to just to be affected by this disease. And the doctor said, if you hadn't got here if you had waited one more day, you would have been blind. That's why it's called optica, because it blinds you also. But I don't claim that I'm not gonna be blind.
Sure. Wow. So Tyrone, how has it been being a caregiver, flipping the roles?
Well, the roles have definitely been reversed. I have a different perspective on caregiver. I mean, a caregiver, when a person's health and safety and nutrition, their personal care is 100% your responsibility at that point. Because as Dee mentioned, she actually became a quadriplegic. She couldn't do anything for herself. So I became her pretty much her lifeline, and learning, refreshing myself in the kitchen, trying to learn how to braid some hair, all type things. You name it, I was doing it,
Right.
My main concern was to make sure that she had the best health care, because she was diagnosed with a very rare disease. And it can be detrimental if it's not treated and diagnosed properly with a sense of urgency.
Right. Yeah. Heard you mention that last night. Wow. That's awesome that you're able to be there for Dee as well and take care of yourself. Now, Curtisha and James, Curtisha, how long have you been dealing with lupus and kidney disease?
I've been dealing with lupus and kidney disease for about 29 years. I was diagnosed when I was 14 years old.
And so when you and James met, were you at kidney failure, or you still was dealing with the conditions of lupus?
I was just dealing with the conditions of lupus, and I was pretty much in remission. When I met James, I had been on dialysis as a teenager, and I had regained kidney function for a little over 22 years. So I wasn't on dialysis, and my kidneys were pretty much okay. But later on through the years, I started having issues with my kidneys again, and that's when I went back on dialysis for a second time.
Okay. And so, James, when you met Curtisha, you automatically became a caregiver, or you how did you feel about that, her being on, dialysis or having kidney disease or chronic illness? Did you have any doubts coming into the relationship once you found that out?
That's a funny question because I kind of already knew she had it. Because I used to work with her husband,
Ex-husband.
Oh,
ex-husband.
okay.
Why
That's
she laughing?
funny.
So I knew she had an illness condition, but no, she was fine as I don't know what. So I that never even crossed my mind that it'd be a burden, a problem, or anything. So
Right. Well, let me ask you this: have it ever came to a point where during Curtisha's illness you became overwhelmed and maybe needed to talk to someone, or had to really like get on your knees and pray about whatever was overwhelming about the situation?
never. She has always educated me about things, and so I would know firsthand before it would get really bad. I remember one time she was kind of going into a depression, and so for about 3 days, she didn't want to get out of bed, and this is when we were dating and just staying together, and so I knew something was wrong about the second day that she just kind of was just lying there. So I called her mom, and her mom was like, you need to get her up. And so, me being the dad, I just kind of made her get up, because I remember her telling me, that if I just get up, if you just get me out of bed and make me come in the front room or whatnot, then I'll be okay, because I'll regain some interest. But no, she's always educated me on her illness. It was something that I had never heard of, and so by her educating me, and by us having to go to the hospital once or twice, it's kind of it educates you as you go.
Right. Now, Don, let me ask you. I read in the beginning it says the impact of kidney disease and dialysis treatment can have on a family ranges from your daily routine to interpersonal relationships. Then it goes on to say some changes may bring you and your family closer and help everyone see what is really important. Others may cause stress and friction. With that being said, when it says being prepared, if this illness comes on a couple and they're not prepared for it, how would they be prepared if all of a sudden, one of them go to the emergency room and they find out they had stage 5 kidney failure or stage 4, and they never knew that was the issue, and now they hit with this, and say they got financial issues going on and some other stuff. How can they start to be prepared where they're already starting behind it's like they starting at a what's the word I want to use?
Behind the 8 ball already?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think first of all, they got to speak to who's ever providing the care. Let's say they end up in the hospital and they're suddenly on dialysis. It's important to talk to the caregivers as much as possible, the social workers, the nurses, anybody that you can reach out to, and to continue to ask until you get an answer, as well as checking resources, say like even whether it be urban health or whether it be on the internet, and really, finding as many resources as possible as quickly as possible. But it's also important to pay attention to both of your feelings and really, talk about how you're feeling so you can get answers and,
Right, but
as
what in
quickly.
case the communication piece is not there? I mean, is that a big factor, the communication piece?
I think it depends on the couple. Certainly with these couples, they communicate well, and I give you guys all a lot of credit. But yeah, sometimes there isn't that communication, and it gets very difficult, and that's where it can actually pull a couple apart. I've actually seen that where somebody gets chronically ill and the other person just basically gets up and leave. They can't handle it.
Let me ask Tyrone and Dee this question. Evidently, I mean, the seriousness of each of you condition is very serious. How important, and I know you talked about them on the show, how important did your children play in this? Because they played a big part in support and helping each of you through this difficult time.
Monique is the youngest daughter. She washed my hair in the hospital, and she washed my hair for at least 4 months in the sink behind me. I had to bend over and she washed my hair because my hands are still not where they supposed to, they still got the numbness and tingling, and I don't have a feeling, in my hands.
Okay.
So Sheikah, she helped, get me dressed and stuff. And she's the oldest daughter. And the oldest son, he will help me get out of the bed, and my oldest son and my youngest son. So I have 4 children. We have 4 children together, of course. And
that's all I know about.
So we have 2 sons and 2 daughters, and both my sons bought us a bed that led up and down, because when I first got out the hospital, I needed a bed like that because I couldn't do anything. And I had the tub removed and put in a walk-in shower for me while I was in the hospital. So, I mean, they all contribute and just help me out. And my youngest son's still in the Navy right now, but he sent money home to help out.
Oh my God, that's awesome. And thank your son for his service. Tyrone, let me ask you, being how this all of a sudden came upon Dee, how appreciative are you of your kids, and how proud are you of them, saying that they stepped up? Because, I mean, you yourself, I mean, do you think you would have been able to kind of take care of all this if you didn't have 4 kids and you was in the same condition?
No, I couldn't have did it without my kids. I mean, they were really there, emotionally, financially, whatever we needed, they were there. When I needed a break from the hospital, either our son or daughter, one of them would come there and sit with Dee. So every once in a while, a caregiver needs a break also to just step away and kind of regroup. And I wouldn't leave her side at the time unless one of our kids was there. I just really didn't trust anyone. Remember now, when Dee went through this illness, which she's still dealing with it, and there is no cure for it. It was at the height of COVID-19, where they weren't allowing visits in the hospital. So the kids would, surprisingly, we would get them in, and when one of them come, I would leave and I would go home, freshen up, and the kids would be there. They brought, every once in a while, they'll bring a hot meal or something, or bring me something to eat, or if I need to go home and get some rest. So without the kids and friends and family members helping out, it'd have been almost impossible to actually achieve to her level of recovery that she's at this current point.
Yeah, Dee, I remember when you reached out to me, you told me, you were, in rehab, and I couldn't believe it. Wow.
Can I say
Sure.
something? Now, I looked this disease up, and it's in the family of MS and lupus.
Wow.
But this disease is worse than they said lupus, and it's worse than that I have. It's worse than MS. So it's like it's transfer myelitis and it's neuromyelitis. So they said I have both of them, which is pretty bad. That's pretty bad.
And how many people in the world has this disease?
4,000 in the United States, and then you looked up and you found in the whole world, you said you seen 1 million.
It's not many. It's
a
very
billion, and in the whole world, and it's about 4,000 in the United States.
Right.
Wow.
Not many.
James, were there ever a time where maybe Curtisha was hospitalized or in a crisis where, it may put an impact on you where you may have needed to get away and take a break as a caregiver?
No, not that I can think of. Even with her transplant, I was there every day. I had a pretty good job, so they would allow me time away. But no, I can't think of a time that she really was in the hospital long enough for me to get tired or just get stressed out coming and going.
Well, let me ask you, both couples. I'll start with Curtisha and James. Was time management ever an issue, James, or impact when it comes to Curtisha's treatment? Has there ever been an issue?
She won't allow it an issue. Her phone and whatever device she has on her is set. And so her medicine is always 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock goes off. She's taking it within 10 o'clock. If we're out and about, she'll take it with her. Or if we know we're not gonna make it back, then she'll let me know. Okay, I need to take something at such and such time, and I'm either reminding her or that alarm goes off. So she is very, very textbook at taking her medication.
And even when I was on dialysis,
sure,
I did my treatments at home, and so our life was centered around me doing dialysis. So time management has never really been an issue because really what's going on with me kind of becomes a part of our world, and we just adjust to it.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. So who did like buying the grocery? Did you still go grocery shopping, Curtisha, and do the cooking and cleaning?
Well, James, he cooks a lot. I do most of the cooking, but if there's certain meals that I prefer him to cook, he'll cook them. Or if I just need a break or he sees that I'm tired, he'll do those kind of things. He will go grocery shopping, but I do like to do my own grocery shopping so I can add extra stuff in the basket.
She don't want me to go grocery shopping because she said I shop and all I buy is snacks.
Right. Hey, Dawn. Before I talk with Tyrone and Dee, can't role reversal happen when it comes to time management when one maybe had been the provider and say that person gets sick and then this other spouse may have to step in and manage their time and time to maybe go buy groceries, doing the laundry, because maybe the other spouse may not feel up to doing some of these tasks. Does that happen a lot?
Absolutely. I think it really looks like it, here. And a lot of times one person may have to step back and change the role of somebody else and become the breadwinner, and maybe work more hours or even get a job if they were at home. So there's a lot of things. It causes financial stress, and there could be emotional stress. A lot of roles, especially if you say somebody gets sick and like for years and years, it's kind of been the same and they get used to it. So yeah, it can definitely change.
Right. Now, Dee and Ty, what about for you now, Tyrone, time management? And I know at one time Dee couldn't move. And you were, like you said, her sole provider. I'm sure you had to go grocery shopping, pay the bills, cook for yourself, clean up the house. Did that at any time become overwhelming to you? Or did you have help with some of that?
Our youngest daughter, Alexandra, which I always call her Monique, she would come over and take care of Dee's hair, but all the things as far as grocery shopping, cooking, paying the bills, I pretty much had to take on that responsibility.
Well, Monique sometimes cook.
And also our daughter would cook a meal occasionally here or there. I took advantage of that. Yeah. But a lot of times when it comes to time management, Dee would often say I didn't have the patience she had. I was a caregiver, but not to her level of caregiving. I'm like, let's get it done. Let's get it done. Let's get it done. And I have to remind myself that Dee don't have the mobility that she used to have. Because I know one day in particular, she came in the kitchen and she tried to make some tea, which they really don't want her doing anything in the kitchen, no driving, nothing with sharp knives or anything, because she can't feel the sensation of what's sharp, dull, hot, cold. She have issues right there with the nerves regenerating in her body. So she burned herself pretty bad, and she wasn't at home a week. She had just got to the hospital maybe a week and had like 2nd-degree burns on both of her hands where the tea spilled over her hand, because by the time she responded to it, it's too late. It's already done. So I said, don't do that. I would take over and do it. And yes, at times it would be like, okay, I need to step back for a minute, regroup, calm down, and take care and do the things I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one time, I do have to say, when I was in the hospital, he would come to the hospital, and he used to have to wash the clothes too. So he'd be in the laundry room, washing clothes.
Yeah.
So he came to the hospital, and he said, "Oh, Dee, I don't know what happened, but something fell off the wall. And it broke, and it's all over the floor, it's glass and stuff." I said, "Did you get it up?" "No, I don't know what happened. Just all of a sudden fell off the wall." I said, the next time he came, he said, "Dee, something else broke in the house." So I said, "Tyrone, stop breaking my stuff. I know you're mad. You're mad because you have to do all this stuff, and you have to, take care, go home and wash and all that stuff." I said, "You better stop just because you're mad, because I'm sick. Do not break any more of my stuff."
All right. Well,
I don't know. It just fell off.
Now you made a said something very important, that he was mad because you were sick. Now, Don, I mean, these are just two great examples of couples that love each other. They're here, they support, and they got great support. But what about the family that's on the opposite end of the spectrum? Like, what if you had the same situation as Dee and Tyrone, but they didn't have the children to help them, or they didn't know how to communicate? What happens to these couples? Do they just fall through the cracks? I mean, do you think, in your opinion, that when someone maybe is diagnosed with kidney failure or even some chronic illness, that some mental health component should play a part in navigating the couple or that person through that process?
I think that mental health should play a component from the very beginning. That there should be that, especially if there's difficulty communicating with each other, because what I found is simply, if one person in the family is sick, then in a way the whole family is sick, because they have to cope with everything mentally, physically, sometimes financially, and it's overwhelming. And everybody in the family could be overwhelmed, whether you have 4 children or 0 children. I want to speak to the anger for a moment that you felt like when your wife was sick. My husband kind of sometimes is like that when I've gotten really sick as well, being a transplant patient. It's just like the worry, the anger, and sometimes mental health does play a piece in that, because it's very difficult to respond to what you're feeling when you're trying to be a caregiver at the same time. So on a personal level, I can relate to that with my own spouse. And I find that happens a lot. There's anger, there's sadness, there's grief. The other spouse is grieving. So it's important. I do suggest to people, when they're seeking mental health help because they're sick, to have maybe either a couple session or a couples therapy session, or maybe even suggesting that each person themselves get individual therapy and techniques for bringing better communication into the marriage.
Mm-hmm. All right. So let me just move on to some tips that I'm reading from an article, and I want to ask Dee and Tyrone, and also Curtisha and James, do they practice these tips that they suggested? with balancing marital needs and kidney failure, let me ask you this. Do you focus on the friendship in the marriage? Let's start with Curtisha and James. With dealing with this situation with lupus and kidney disease, again, do you focus not just the marriage, but also the friendship as well to try to manage what's going on? Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, for us, the first thing we do in the morning when we wake up is we always say good morning to each other. And then at the end of the day, we always ask how our day was, so we're always,
That's important.
We're always mindful of each other, how our day was, and we communicate throughout the day. So we always try to hold on to those components of checking on each other, nurturing one another, loving on one another, no matter what's going on, whether it's a sickness or, a bill is due or whatever the situation is. We always try to make sure that we focus on those things, the things that are important, and that's us.
Are you reading this? Are you reading the same article that I got? Because I kid you not, it says focus on the friendship in the marriage. It says no matter how sick a person, it says no matter how sick a person, it takes little effort to ask the spouse, how was your day? Or how are you coping with this kidney stuff? Some spouses will respond cautiously, not wanting to hurt the patient's feelings, but giving the spouse permission to be hurt and angry about kidney failure can help focus the emotion and make the adjustment easier. A strong friendship is an excellent predictor of success in marriage, and taking some time to listen to each other is the mark of any solid friendship.
I agree.
What about you, Tyrone and Dee? I know before Dee got sick, y'all was traveling, y'all was taking pictures. Everywhere y'all went, y'all took pictures together, spending time on the boat with the grandkids. Is it the same way as far as friendship with you guys?
Our friendship is still always remains strong, but I would just want to backtrack a little bit on the anger part. Well, a lot of the things when I would get angry, it was because there's a sense of no control. There's nothing you can do to change the situation. You're taking the meds and you're not getting the results that you expect I guess at that time frame. So it was a sense of like hopelessness that, okay, why is this happening? And then sometime I would close my eyes and I go, okay, this is a dream. This is not real. This is not happening to me. But you had to face reality and actually deal with it. As far as asking each other in each day on the communication, she'll tell you, she'll be laying down and I go, are you comfortable? Are you hot, you cold, or she disappeared too long? I'm like, okay, where you at? You're okay, everything's all right. Because sometimes you have a balance issue, making sure that, a fall factor, a risk factor there. So I'm always constantly checking, asking, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Because we're both still learning about this disease that she has. And I'm pretty much her caregiver. She's my caregiver. She reminds me of to take my meds. I remind her and all the things that she would normally do. Yes, I have to step up to the plate and do those things. And then when I can't do it, one of our kids, I don't want to leave out our other daughter, Tashika. I've been mentioning Monique a lot, but Tashika, she'll come over and do things, or if we need her to run, pick up something.
Beautiful.
Do the computer, do something on the computer.
So it's a lot of factors that really plays a role in this. It's no one magic bullet, no one magic answer to the relationship.
Okay.
And Tashika have my car over her house, so her husband could put a stereo and a new stereo in my car because it went out. So my car's over house. I've been over there about 2 weeks until I order a radio. So they helped out a lot.
Okay.
Great.
So let me ask this question. because these are what I read when it comes to married couples where one may have kidney disease or chronic illness. Let's start with James and Curtisha. Were there any issues, say, with a lot of couples, they may sleep in different beds because maybe the one spouse who have kidney disease may have restless leg syndrome or itching or toss and turn and may keep the other person out. So was there ever an issue with you guys having to sleep in separate beds? And then I'll move on to Tyrone and Dee.
No, never. I mean, as a couple, for me and my wife, you hadn't been a couple until you dealing with her on dialysis and she's doing PD at home, and you say, hey, I want to keep this vibrant. Hey, I want to keep our relationship live. I want to keep the sex live. And it just opens up so many other doors for role play.
Role play.
I mean, this is my girl. One of the famous things that I always say to everybody, because my wife is really, really sickly with lupus. She has 20 other things that come along with lupus. I always tell folks, hey, I got a bad horse, but I'm still riding it. Because when I married her, but
you got a bad horse. Oh no, you got a good heart.
We are so spiritually based until no matter what he puts in front of us, if we can't handle it, he's got the best deal going in town. We turn it back over to him and say, Lord, okay, which way you want us to go with this? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what we got to deal with. And so that's what he put in front of us. He put it in front of us for a reason. And if we can't figure it out, then, hey, okay, what do you want us to do with this? And so it has never been a time to where I even thought about moving out of the bed. It might have been a spell to where we might not, been able to touch each other like we wanted to. But ultimately, when you love a person unconditional, it's the world. It's the world. So,
and it takes a special person to deal with a person like myself. Especially when a person is doing PD, you got the sound of the machine, you got the smell of the solutions. Everybody can't deal with that. So it takes a very special person to deal with situations like that. And I think, Steve, that's why it's so important for us to have these kind of conversations. And I think these kind of conversations help other couples who are in similar situations.
Definitely.
Because, when you love somebody, you kind of tolerate and deal with some things that, that may make you uncomfortable and that you don't really care for a whole lot. But I think it grows you as a couple when you deal with those things together. It makes you stronger.
Mm-hmm. Now, Dee, did your your illness unexpectedly, did that bring, I know you and Tyrone were already close. You couldn't find one without the other, but did this situation bring y'all more closer? Did you feel like maybe, or even had a thought, like by you being sick now, that Tyrone may not be attracted to you anymore, or not really treat you the way he has been because of this unexplained illness that y'all didn't know about in the beginning? Now, you learned so much about it, but in the beginning, did you have any of those self-doubts about your marriage being in jeopardy because of what was going on? Or you knew, because I know you're a spiritual person, or that didn't even cross your mind?
No, it didn't cross my mind. I seen that he was there for me, even in the hospital. One time, the doctor had came in, and I was laying straight on the, flat on the bed, couldn't do nothing. And he came over and he looked me dead in the eyes, and he said, "Are you scared?" And I said, no. He said, you should be. I'm like, wow. I mean, okay. I'm like, do you know
Old
the God
doctor.
I serve? That's what I said to myself. I said, I'm not scared. But to myself, I said that. And so that evening, I couldn't move a thing. That evening he came in and Tyrone was standing there and Tyrone was recording me because he had went outside to take a break because he couldn't take it. He just couldn't take it. So he came back and the doctor said, lift your leg up. And I lift my leg up all the way up. And now he said, now lift your other leg up. And I lift that leg all the way up. And Tyrone was like, he just couldn't believe it. And he was recording and he just started, weeping. And, I could hear his voice kind of like, he wanted to cry. And because he just had, I don't know if he gave up on that I would never walk again, but he was teary, he was tearing up and he was just so happy. He said, Dee, when I went outside, you couldn't do nothing. He said, I came back in 30 minutes and look at you. You can move.
Wow.
You can, but they don't know. I got God being on my side. And so he is a healer. And he got me back up on my feet. And I could do things that I couldn't do. I just couldn't do anything. But now I could do, a lot more each day, get better and better. So I knew that Tyrone would be there for me because I was there for him, during his time when he had to have his heart transplant. I was there for him. So I figured it, but I never thought this would ever happen to me, of course. But he was there for me and I was there for him.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
go ahead, Ty.
Yes, I know we had mentioned about relationships and the stress, different things on the marriage. I know when Dee first came down with neuromyelitis optica that there were some issues because one thing is that neuromyelitis optica can affect you sexually also. So when we found out that she couldn't feel anything, so I mean, I touched her arm, she couldn't feel nothing. Her legs, she couldn't feel nothing. Touched her rear, she couldn't feel anything. I'm like, okay, challenge. So I came in the room one day and I go, hey, can you feel that? And she goes, oh no, I can't feel that. I said, boy, I gotta get you home. I gotta work on you.
Right.
Couldn't feel a thing, But since then, what actually where you get your sensation through your body is, I think it's, I'm gonna get this correct. I think it's the myelin that wraps around the nerve. It has to regenerate in her body, and it's coming back, and she's really doing great now. I mean, yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean,
I like a challenge. It's really a little over the top, but hey, we're there. Okay. I was trying to say that without making it XXXX.
Oh, that's okay. Wow. Well, I mean, thank you for sharing that. Definitely.
Great sense of humor too.
Yeah. So, Dawn, I mean, what do couples do who are not like the Brisby or the Andersons when you have couples on the other end of the spectrum? How can we help those couples? I mean, because there's a lot of couples that are, divorcing or separating because of this.
Well, first of all, I sometimes wonder, are they breaking up or divorcing? Because I was reading the article that you had there. Are they separating because a person is on dialysis, or are they separating because there was a problem in the marriage that was not solved or discussed long before they even got married? Which also just means that the illness increases the problem that's already there because the communication was already bad. So I think we can educate couples as much as possible. We can share these videos. We can encourage people to just simply remain in the relationship while one of them or both of them are sick, by doing the simple things that these couples do, you know, saying I love you, checking in with one another, learning to be present in the relationship in some form, even if a person can't get out of bed, you can still say, hi, how are you? How was your day? Did you sleep okay? What are you feeling like? And both people can do that for each other. So I think sometimes counseling, maybe even mental health counseling, is needed to bring people back. But I also realize it's not always possible. And sometimes there are people who just they cannot handle having a sick partner. So it's important to realize that too.
Right. Man, we're gonna have to do a part 2 of this show, but
I think
no,
so.
seriously, because this. I mean, this could go on, and it's it's like 58 minutes. But I do want to ask this question to Curtisha and James and then Tyrone. This article that Dawn and I are referring to, the name of it is the spouse of the dialysis patient, for better or for worse. And I mean, you can apply not just to dialysis, but to a chronic illness. But one of the things they said you can do to kind of help situations be better is to talk about things besides your illness. And it goes on to say some patients talk about their illness daily. This causes the couple to become more and more alienated, which could lead to the sick partner feeling sicker and the healthier one feeling guilty. It's like a person in a nursing home who gripes about not feeling well and that no one comes to see them. The result is that people want to stop coming to see them, thus causing them to feel worse. Talk about your illness often with your healthcare team and occasionally with your spouse. Did you? Let me go to D and Tyrone. I mean, is that something that each of you can avoid at this point now? Because Tyrone has, heart transplant now. D, you got this neuromyelitis. Can you still avoid a conversation like that of talking about your illness all the time, especially if you're going through some pain or something?
Yes, because me and Tyrone just go about, we the only one in the house now that the kids grew up, and now we got grandkids, but we don't see them as much because of the COVID. So we just live normal, like nothing ever happened to us.
Well, primarily, I mean, you want to be you have to have a sense of purpose. If a person don't feel they have a sense of purpose, then they do kind of like give up hope. So you want to try to function as normal as possible. Do things, not that's going to be health risk wise, but do things that you can do together. Just have a normal conversation. You're not ignoring the issue at hand, but yet you want to bring some normalcy to your life to not constantly put yourself under the pressure of what's actually your body dealing with. I mean, even though all the warning signs are there, all the issues are there, but still you got to step back sometime, regroup, try to be as normal as possible, then reapproach the plate again. So
we don't even talk about we don't really talk about our illness, do we?
We remind each other to take our medications.
That's about it. We don't even talk about it. Yeah.
What about you, Curtisha and James? Did you talk about your illness, like when you were sick, or have any complaints about it, or you kept it to yourself, Curtisha?
Well, for us, we have such an open relationship that I've always felt comfortable sharing things with him. I mean, it's not the focus of our lives, although it's a part of our lives. We spend a lot of time laughing, having a good time with each other. So my illness is not the focus of our relationship. However, I have learned that if there's something going on with me, it's important for me to share that with him.
And I need to know what's going on with you. where I need to
Oh,
know
what
what's
you saying
hurting.
about other
I
people?
need so I can just focus on that one part of you, or okay, if it's hurting, can I pour a cup of water on it and that help? I need to know. So
Yeah.
I'm always asking,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm always wanting to get educated about it. You know, if it's something new that the doctor is saying is going on with you, I need to know. So, you know, it's just like I need to know when you say, James, this is my bag. Anything happened to me, you know, this is what you grab when we go into the hospital. I need to know exactly what's going on with you at this point in time. Also, don't just tell me this is the list of meds, so bring that with you. This is the bag. No, I need to know everything. So we always talk about everything, and the easiest thing that I say for anybody is keep the line of communication open. Is just talk. All you gotta do is just talk. But we make it so easy for one another. We promise each other that we never go to bed without saying I love you. And so what works for us is
Aw.
when we always say good night, and then that opens the chain of either I'm gonna say I love you or she love me. But then we also
Aw.
make it easy to where when we wake up, we always say good morning. So that opens the chain up. And so, you know, that'll give me the opportunity to ask, well, how are you feeling? So we're constantly talking. We never shut up talking. We're always talking.
Right.
And
Wow.
we never try to do a sad, you know, Curtisha always tells everybody there's never a dull moment. Well, I'm a jokester and I'm a giver. And I always say, you know, you're never going to beat me giving. So it's easy for me to give to her because I'm always giving. But then too, I think life just too short to not laugh about it.
Right.
Wow. Wow.
Absolutely.
Now, Don, before we close up, and I want to get a comment from the couples, but from the mental health perspective, what should families who's watching this show get out of this? What from the mental health standpoint of trying to balance or maintain a happy marriage or relationship in light of dealing with chronic kidney disease or any chronic illness? What can people take away from this? Are you still there, Don? Uh-oh.
She probably.
Oh my God, we lost it. That was my that was my professional wrap up. But hopefully she'll log back on. She says she's been having some technical issues, but if she doesn't, I get each of your perspective. Let's start with D and Tyrone. What do you want couples watching this right now to know about dealing with a chronic illness from both perspectives? Both of y'all being a caregiver, now I'm being a caregiver to each. What can they take away from your situation to maybe, and we know everybody's situation is better, but just give us one takeaway that if someone's dealing with this situation, a couple, what can they do to turn it around to try to make it better for each other?
I would say what I think couples should take away from this is that if something of this nature enters your relationship or family, you're going to have a very open mind to change. You got to be able to adapt to the situation. You know, you can't change the situation, but you can adapt to make things better and learn and educate yourself about the illness and how to go by treating it and surviving with it. Mm-hmm. So that's a very important aspect of this is really education, because I do a lot of reading on these conditions. She's done a lot of reading on my condition. And when you do that research and educate yourself, make sure you have a reliable source of information, because especially if you're using smartphones and things, you know, use sites that have credible information that you really can, you know, that's factual, not off somebody, you know, just pulling something out of the sky. You know, make sure it's good information that you research on.
What about you, D? You want to add to that, or let Tyrone have that last say?
No, I want to say,
She said no.
if okay, let's say, if you're having problems and you can't handle it mentally, I would say go see either a pastor to talk to, or because my Bishop Hall came to the hospital and prayed for me, and that was supportive to me, to know that he cares and he's thinking of us. And he kept up with us and kept calling and making sure that I was okay. So that was a good support. And go to see a psychiatrist if you need to.
It's not funny, but just when she said it.
Go see a psychiatrist if you need to. Not trying to be funny, but Tyrone went through a lot mentally when he, had to be, cut open, and then he couldn't handle that. So I said, okay, let's go see somebody, whatever we have to do to get this, together and talk to somebody. And I think it took about 9 months, and we talked to the psychiatrist, and each time we went, it was a week. What you laughing at?
No.
And we went once a week or maybe twice a week, and we talked to him, and and then I would say after 9 months, we was tired of going because we was okay now. But how we got out of it, we have an artistic granddaughter. And because he wouldn't let us out of it, he kept saying, no, let me release you. So we was like, so we brought the artistic granddaughter with us one day. She was all over the place, jumping off the couches. She was she was rubbing his head, and he didn't have no hair. She was rubbing all over his head. And he couldn't take it. He was about 70 years old. He was about 70 years old. So he was like, scared. And so he said, what? I can't take this no more. I can't take it no more. And I said, oh, okay. That's how we could be released.
Okay. One last word. Very important. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Okay. Hopefully that's
very good. Very good.
Don't be afraid to ask for help.
And we went to go get some help.
Oh,
for Tyrone.
awesome.
For Tyrone.
Okay. You got the last word, D. Okay.
Right. Hey, so Curtisha and James, what do you want people to take away from this conversation, what we talked about with kidney disease and chronic illness and relationship and marriage?
I agree with Dee and Tyrone. We sought spiritual counseling. And then for us also, we had to remind ourselves of our vows, sickness and in health, and until death do us part. And so we hold tight to that, and that has gotten us through a lot.
Wow. James, anything, or that's it with Curtisha?
For me, it works for me just as a reminder that, this is my wife. This is the only wife I got. And if it's on my watch, excuse my French, but I'll be damned if she suffers. So if there's anything that I can do within my powers, because she is my wife, I'm doing it. So I'm in it. I'm still riding. I'm still riding.
Right.
I'm clapping for y'all.
I'm still riding.
All right, guys. That's awesome. That's awesome. Man, I again thank both of you couples for coming on. I wanted to wish I had my regular social worker on, but last minute changes. But we are doing a part 2, and I would definitely like to welcome both of you guys back on when we do come back and do that.
Okay, thank you.
It'll be a pleasure to do that.
All right. So D and Tyrone, y'all guys take care. D, it's good to see you and actually talk to you guys. I'm gonna keep you on my thoughts and prayers, and know that God is going to heal you. And like I said, I'm just gonna keep you on my thought and prayers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Curtisha and James, you guys, I love you guys, and I'm gonna keep you in thoughts and prayers as well.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, guys. Have a happy holiday if I don't
You
talk to
too.
you by Christmas. And God bless.
Yeah,
All
Merry
right.
Christmas and Happy New Year.
All right,
Bye-bye.
Sadie. All right, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, this was an awesome show. I'm just sorry that Dawn, she was having technical difficulties with her device. So I'm sorry I couldn't get a last. Oh, wait a minute. Let me see. I may have got her popping on. Hey, Dawn.
Yeah, sorry, I lost my internet for a minute. That was weird.
Oh, okay. Okay. So before I log out, can you just give us an overall assessment with, someone's watching that's a couple or married, what they should take away from this broadcast?
Sure, Steve. Well, I think the best things you can take away from this broadcast are to check in with one another, to stay in the relationship, to say good morning, how are you, I love you, to communicate with one another, to get educated about the other person's illness, and just simply to be there in whatever way possible. It's okay to acknowledge the anger and the sadness and the hopelessness that sometimes the caregiver or even the person with the illness feels, and to let them know that it's okay to feel bad. Also, to engage yourself in other activities in the marriage besides basically just your illness. Do things you may.
Oh my God. She must have lost her internet again. So guys, I'm going to go ahead and close the show, but you get the gist of what Jim was saying. So with that being said, I'm not sure why they had no comments tonight. That's very unusual on this particular device. So with that being said, guys, thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this special broadcast of Urban Health Outreach Media, Relationships, Marriage, and Chronic Illness. I'm Steve Belcher. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon. Peace.